Hey guys, welcome to Unit 2 third grade reading overview. My name is Kayla McDowell and I'm the third grade reading CTL. So what we will go over in this presentation, we are going to go over every single teak that's in this up and coming unit. Some pacing notes for this unit. The unit starts on September 25th, and ends on November 3rd. And there will also be 5 flex days in this unit as well. The Unit 2 teaks. So by the end of this unit, we want our scholars to be able to understand and connect to their reading by making deep and meaningful inferences and drawing conclusions about text. We want them to be able to explore the nonfiction genre. The readiness teaks in this unit are main idea, supporting details, drawing conclusions, cause and effect, text features, prefix, suffix, and context clues. Supporting teaks include graphic features, building comprehension through analyzing words, images, and graphics, making inferences, and summarizing information, maintaining the logical order. Let's get started on breaking down each of these teaks. Now, the first and most heavy hit teak of this unit is going to be main idea and supporting details, teak 3.13a. With this teak, scholars should be able to analyze an expository text, identify what the story is mostly about, and identify the details and the facts that support their main idea. Some helpful tips for teaching main idea and things to be aware of while planning your unit for main idea or your lessons for main idea. Scholars like to pick small details and run with it. So they like to pick one little thing that stood out to them, and that's going to be their main idea. Catch this misconception early, pre-teach this misconception, let scholars know that that's not the way we find the main idea, that we need to be intentional, and we really need to be looking for the supporting details. The question that I always ask my scholars when they do make this error, I say, is this what the whole entire story, was the whole entire story about this one thing? If not, then we go back, we look at it again. Tell scholars to use the headings and subheadings. In the nonfiction genre, headings and subheadings will literally give you the main idea. We need to be letting scholars know, hey, use those headings, use those subheadings. That's what they're there for. They're there to help you. Also, star-aligned questions may ask for the main idea of a paragraph or the main idea of a couple paragraphs. And sometimes it is hard for scholars to switch their thinking from, hey, I'm looking at the whole entire story, to I need to focus on just these couple of paragraphs. So make sure you're giving scholars practice in that area as well. The next teak that we'll be looking at is drawing conclusions. 3.13b. Scholars need to be able to make guesses based off details in a text. When looking for details that describe a place or an event, they have to be able to use their background knowledge to predict what will happen next. A conclusion is literally a guess of what's to come. I tell my scholars, make a guess, then support your guess. Make a guess, support your guess. Draw a conclusion, and then you have to support your conclusion. Some helpful tips for conclusions. Conclusions are tricky. Sometimes kids just get in their way of like, this is what I would do next. And so they don't focus on the evidence and the supporting details of what the text is telling them. They're relying only on background knowledge. So we have to make sure that we are bridging the gap between background knowledge and text evidence. Once again, driving home the point that conclusions are like guesses. I'm literally asking you to guess on what you think will happen next using the evidence from the story. The way conclusion questions are asked, a couple examples. The reader can tell that. The reader can conclude blank about this character. And we just need to be making sure when we give exit tickets or when we're working a guided reading that we are exposing scholars to the way and the format of these types of questions. The next TEK that we are talking about is cause and effect, 3.13c. Scholars should know that the cause is the why something happened. The effect is the what happened because of the cause. The cause is the why. The effect is the what happened. Also, scholars need to understand that cause and effect relationships help the reader understand the events in the story and how they're connected. This was something that I did not exclusively teach, something that I didn't even mention, but moving forward and learning more about cause and effect, kids really need to understand that we have to study cause and effect in order to help us understand how the events are connected. Also, we also need to understand, we need to help the scholars understand that understanding cause and effect relationships help us to know why characters act the way they do. Like, why was the character sad at the beginning of the story? What changed their mind? That was the cause and effect relationship. So just being intentional about pointing out the why piece of that sometimes we tend to miss. Some helpful tips, some clue words for cause and effect. I tell my scholars, look for because. If you see the word because, that's going to tell you that something happened. Since, so, as a result of, all these words are going to give you some hints of where to go to find a cause and effect relationship. Some types of questions are, what happened? Why did blank happen? What caused blank to do blank? And once again, when you create your exit tickets, be intentional about putting in these types of questions and question stems so scholars can get used to them. Text features, 3.13d. Graphic features is a supporting standard in building comprehension through analyzing words and images and graphics, 3.16. Scholars should be able to confirm their predictions about the content of a passage. They need to be able to understand how to read different graphs. I've seen a lot of scholars understand, for the most part, what a text feature or a graphic feature was trying to tell them, but because they couldn't read the graph, they couldn't answer the question correctly. So we need to be sure that we are exposing them to different types of graphs. They need to be able to locate the graphic features and interpret the words and images in the graphs and just how that connects to the content of the story or the text that they're reading. Some helpful hints. These are just a list of all of the text features that third graders should know. They need to know what a table of contents is. They need to know what an index is, headings, subheadings, captions. Captions kill. Scholars need to be aware of captions and what captions do. We see captions all the time. So it's as simple as, like, when you see a caption, point it out and call it by name. Hey, this is a caption. Captions explain what's happening in the picture above. They need to understand the different keywords. They need to understand bolded words, underlined words, italicized words, words that are surrounded by quotes, words that are in all caps. They just need to understand that these words are going to be meaningful in some type of way, and they need to just be aware. Next, we will be looking at context clues. Scholars should be able to use the relationships between the surrounding words, phrases, sentences, and paragraphs to determine the meaning of an unfamiliar word. This is going to be a skill that scholars are going to have to really get good at. They have to understand that some words have multiple meanings, and that's a hard concept, especially for our ELL babies. These multiple meaning words, that's when you really have to pay attention to how it's used in the story or in the passage to find the meaning. They also need to understand dictionary entries. The first question on CA1 is a dictionary entry type question. So scholars need to be familiar with how words are presented in a dictionary and how they can pick the correct meaning based off of the text evidence. The best thing to do to help scholars in context clues is just provide them with multiple opportunities to use their context clues. This is a skill that's just going to take repetition, and they're going to just have to be able to use the words around it, the phrases around it, and really just look beyond I'm stuck on this word, I don't know this word. How can you find the meaning without asking your teacher? Prefix and suffix is the last readiness TEK in this unit, but it is an ongoing TEK from Unit 1. Scholars need to be able to use these words in context. They need to just get exposure to all these prefixes and suffixes and bring it to their awareness of, hey, I see the word un in unfair. Un means not, so this is telling me not fair. Also, prefix and suffix is a heavy hit strand on MAP, so be aware of the scholars in your class and if they need to know these specific prefixes and suffixes to help them move up a RIT range in MAP. You can check the learning continuum for that information. Making inferences. Scholars need to be able to understand that an inference is just a logical guess. An inference, and they need to be able to support their inferences with text evidence and also tie in their background knowledge. Inferences are made based off of conclusions, and the difference between an inference and a conclusion are usually based off of more than one piece of information. You have multiple things working to help you draw conclusions. Whereas an inference, you just need to make an inference about this certain piece of information. So the way inferencing questions can be presented on a test, in poetry, lines blank through blank show that the speaker feels this way, or the speaker wants you to know this, or the speaker is trying to say this, and which statement from the passage supports the idea that blank feels however about this situation. Once again, being intentional and being mindful about how we present scholars with these types of questions will really help us in the long run. The last TEK that we will go over today is summarizing information. Scholars just need to be able to understand that when you're summarizing, you're taking a larger text and you're creating a shorter version, only using main ideas and important information. Some helpful tips. I tell my scholars when looking or creating the best nonfiction summary, we look for the following information in beginning, middle, and order. I'm looking for who or what is the passage about, when did it take place, where did it take place, why is this important, what's the main idea. All of this information will create the best nonfiction summary as long as it's in beginning, middle, and order. It has to be in beginning, middle, and order. When trying to create the best fiction summary, I tell my scholars to look for this information in beginning, middle, and order as well. Who are the main characters? What was their goal? Sometimes characters don't have a goal. Sometimes they have a problem or a want. What was their problem? What was their want? And then last, how did they solve their problem? What was the solution? So all of this information, once again, has to be in beginning, middle, and order, and this will help scholars find or create the best fiction summary. So quick recap: nonfiction, who, what, where, when, why. Fiction, CGS. Last, resources. I've posted new Unit 2 resources on Blackboard, and I tried to include a resource for every TEK. I think I succeeded. I included a resource for every single TEK. Please go check them out. Use them. That's what they're there for. If you have a resource and you say, hey, this is a bomb resource, I've seen so much growth with this one, please share it with me so I can share it with everyone. Let's just let each other be our biggest resource and help each other help our babies reach their goals. Last but not least, please contact me with questions. My email is kmcdowell@uplifteducation.org. If you have questions, I'm usually pretty good at getting back to people within 24 hours. If not, come to the bi-weekly office hours, ask those questions. Let's not suffer in silence. This is really a partnership, and we can get this done together. Thank you so much. I look forward to collaborating with you guys soon. Bye-bye.